The wind carried the smell of pine and gun oil when Tahoma rode up the narrow mountain trail toward his newly bought cabin, only to see smoke rising from its chimney. He froze in the saddle. That wasn't supposed to be there. For a long moment he sat still, his horse's breath steaming in the cold air, his heart thudding slow and deliberate. He had spent 3 years working for this, 3 years of breaking wild horses, hauling timber for white men who spat at his name, and trading pelts under the false smile of settlers who called him half-breed when they thought he couldn't hear. The cabin was supposed to be his start, his silence, his home, but smoke meant life, and life meant trouble. The snow-crusted trees whispered all around him, tall sentinels keeping their own secrets. He guided his horse closer, careful, each hoofstep muffled under the blanket of white. The cabin stood by the frozen creek, tucked among pines like a secret someone had tried to hide. It was smaller than he imagined, its roof sagging with frost, but the curtains were drawn, and faint light flickered behind them. Someone was inside. He dismounted slowly, every instinct screaming that this was wrong. The land agent in town, Jacob Mills, had sworn no one lived up here for years, said the last owner froze one winter and that no soul had touched the place since. Mills had sold it cheap, too cheap, but Tahoma had taken it without questions. He wasn't the questioning kind. He wanted peace, not papers. Now. It looked like he'd bought a lie. The smell of bread drifted through the door, crack fresh, warm, impossibly human. It struck him harder than a gunshot. It had been months since he'd smelled anything so alive. For a second, his chest tightened with a strange ache he didn't recognize. He pushed it down. His hand went to the rifle slung across his shoulder. He thumbed the hammer, ready. The boards creaked under his boots as he stepped up to the porch. The snow had been brushed aside, their fresh prints, small ones, likely a woman's. He hesitated. If it was a trap, he'd spring it clean and fast. If it wasn't, well, then someone was squatting on his land. He pushed open the door. The sound it made, a long, tired groan, cut through the hush of the mountain air. Inside, the warmth hit him first. A fire burned bright in the stone hearth, shadows dancing across rough-hewn walls. Then he saw her. A woman stood near the stove, holding a loaf of bread in one hand and a pistol in the other. She didn't scream, didn't even flinch. Her eyes met his, gray, unblinking, and cold as a winter river. For a moment, the world outside vanished. The storm, the trees, even the creak of the wind. Only those eyes existed, sharp enough to slice through whatever words he might have said. "You're standing in my house," she said finally. Voice steady but frayed at the edges, like someone who had been running too long. Tahoma's grip tightened on the rifle, but he didn't raise it. "No," he said. "You're standing in mine." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile, not quite disbelief. "Your house?" She took a step closer, her bare feet light on the wooden floor. "I've been living here for 6 weeks. Haven't seen a soul. Paid no one for it, but no one claimed it either. So I made it mine." The tone of defiance in her voice almost made him laugh. Almost. He lowered the rifle slowly and set it on the table beside him. "I bought it," he said, "from Jacob Mills 2 weeks ago." At that name, her face changed. All the color drained from it, as if the warmth of the fire couldn't touch her anymore. Her eyes widened, and the pistol slipped slightly in her trembling hand. "You bought it from Mills?" she whispered. He nodded once. She swallowed hard, then lowered her gun, setting it gently on the counter beside the bread. "Then you bought more than land," she said quietly. "You bought trouble." Outside, the wind rose, howling through the pines like a warning. Tahoma glanced toward the door, his instincts prickling. Whoever she was, whatever story she carried, it was carved deep in those tired eyes, and he knew he'd stepped straight into it. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her past. But as the fire popped in the hearth and the wind clawed at the windows, Tahoma understood one thing. This cabin wasn't empty when he arrived. It was waiting for him. The silence between them stretched like a drawn BOWSTRING.TAHOM stood by the door, his breath still visible in the cold air. While the woman watched him from beside the stove, her hands trembling slightly, though she tried to hide it. The bread she had baked still steamed on the table, filling the small room with a warmth that didn't reach either of them. He noticed everything. The thin blanket thrown over a cot in the corner. The small Bible with worn edges. The way her dress, though once fine, had been mended and patched with rough thread. Whoever she was, she'd been living rough. Finally, she spoke again. "You said you bought this place from Jacob Mills?" Tahoma nodded once, still standing tall, his shoulders broad and dark against the pale wood of the cabin wall. "Paid him $50, 2 horses, and a rifle for it. Got the paper to prove it." Her face twisted into something between pity and anger. "Then you were robbed, same as me." He frowned. "Explain." She turned toward the window, staring out into the falling snow. "Mills doesn't own this land. He never did. He's been selling what ain't his to sell and killing anyone who finds out." Tahoma's jaw tightened. He'd heard of men like that, men who hid behind the law they made for themselves. But what caught him wasn't her words. It was the tremor in her voice, the weariness that came from running too long. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Evelyn," she said. "Evelyn Hart." She didn't look at him when she said it. As if the name itself carried a weight she'd rather drop in the snow and forget. He set his rifle down, leaned it against the wall, and stepped closer to the fire. "You been here long?" 6 weeks. Her eyes flicked toward him finally, measuring whether she could trust him. "The first few nights I slept with that pistol under my pillow. Thought he might come back." "He always comes back." Tahoma studied her, the flickering firelight painting her face in shades of gold and shadow. She looked no older than 30, but there was a hardness to her, a quiet resilience that came from surviving things most couldn't name. "You running from him?" he asked. "I was." She gave a bitter half smile. "Then winter came. I thought I'd be safer up here. No one climbs this far when snow starts falling. But I didn't expect anyone else to claim it." The faintest smirk tugged at his lips. "You thought wrong." For the first time, she almost laughed, but it died in her throat. "Guess I did." He moved toward the table, tore a piece of her bread, and tasted it. It was rough but warm like her voice. He chewed slowly, his eyes still on her. "So, what now? You expect me to turn around and ride back to town?" "You could," she said softly. "Or you could stay until morning. There's room by the fire. Snow's thick tonight, and the mountain don't care who owns what when it decides to bury you." Tahoma studied her again, his instincts divided. Every part of him that had learned not to trust settlers screamed to walk out that door. But something deeper, something quieter, kept him still. He nodded once. "Just one night." Evelyn exhaled, almost in relief. "That's all I ask." She turned back to the stove, her movements practiced but tired. Tahoma sat near the door, rifle across his knees. The flames crackled, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something like peace. Though it was a fragile thing. As the hours passed, he watched her silently. The way her shoulders hunched when the wind howled. The way she checked the door latch twice before lying down. She wasn't just afraid of Mills, she was expecting him. When she finally drifted to sleep on the cot, he stayed awake, listening to the mountain breathe outside. Snow whispered against the roof. Coyotes howled in the valley below, and through it all, Evelyn's quiet breathing steadied him. He thought about the papers in his saddlebag, the deed Mills had given him. sealed and signed, and wondered how many others had died believing in that man's words. As the fire burned low, he looked once more at Evelyn Hart. Something about her didn't fit the picture of a thief or a liar. She was hiding something, yes, but not for greed. For survival. He rested his rifle across his knees and leaned back against the wall, eyes half closed but alert. He told himself it was just for the night, that by morning he'd ride to town and settle things with Mills. But deep down, he knew better. The mountain had drawn him here for a reason, and that reason was sleeping just a few feet away. By morning, the snow had buried the trail that led up the ridge. Tahoma stood outside the cabin, breath clouding in the icy air, scanning the endless white. The world felt muffled, silent, but watchful. He had lived in silence most of his life, but this kind was different. This one hid danger beneath its beauty. When he came back inside, Evelyn Hart was already awake, sitting at the table with her hands wrapped around a tin cup of coffee. She looked up at him, eyes heavy with sleeplessness and something deeper fear she'd learned to keep quiet. "You didn't sleep," he said. "Didn't dare," she murmured. "The snow's good at hiding footprints. Makes it easy for a man to sneak close without being seen." Tahoma set his rifle by the door and crouched by the fire, feeding it another piece of wood. The flames flared, lighting the room in amber tones. "You think Mills is coming back?" She hesitated before answering. "I don't think, I know." The crackle of the fire filled the silence that followed. He studied her face. There was a haunted stillness there, the kind seen in people who'd lost too much and learned to live with the ghosts. Finally, he asked the question that had been sitting between them since last night. "Who is he to you?" Her lips parted, but she didn't look up. "Jacob Mills was my husband's business partner. They worked together back in Kansas. My husband, Daniel, trusted him." She let out a bitter laugh that wasn't laughter at all. "Trusted him with everything." Tahoma didn't move. He knew what was coming. You didn't get eyes like hers without betrayal. Evelyn's fingers tightened around her cup. "We owned a small shipping company. When the war ended, there was money to be made hauling goods west. But Jacob wanted more. He started moving gold for men who didn't want questions asked. Confederate gold, he said. Buried wealth waiting to be claimed. My husband found out, and that's when the fire happened." She paused. The words seemed to drag her backward in time. Her gaze fixed on the wall as if seeing through it. "They said Daniel's lamp overturned, but I saw the oil on the porch. I smelled the smoke before I even reached the door. Mills came out coughing, pretending to help. I remember his hands on my shoulders, steady, calm, like nothing was wrong. He told me to leave town for my own safety. I did." Her voice cracked. "I did what he said. Like a fool." Tahoma clenched his jaw. "He followed you." She nodded. "All the way here. He said I owed him silence, that if I opened my mouth about what he'd done, he'd finish what he started." The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters as if agreeing with her. "And you thought hiding in this cabin would keep you safe?" Tahoma asked. She met his eyes, the first spark of defiance lighting in her expression. "It did, until you showed up." He almost smiled at that almost. "You think I work for him?" "I think," she said slowly, "you're the first man I've met in months who hasn't tried to use me." That silenced him. The weight of her words settled between them like dust. Tahoma turned to the window. The snow outside had eased, sunlight slipping through the trees in sharp white blades. He could see tracks now faint, distant, but real. A single horse had passed along the ridge some time before dawn. "He's close," Tahoma said. Evelyn's breath hitched. "Then he knows I'm still alive." He faced her fully then, his long black hair falling across his shoulders, the turquoise pendant on his chest catching the firelight. His voice was low but firm. "You said he kills to stay rich. That kind of man doesn't stop unless someone makes him." She studied him, searching for something in his expression, fear, maybe, or mercy, but found neither. There was only calm resolve, the kind that came from surviving what others couldn't imagine. "I didn't ask for your help," she said quietly, "and I didn't offer it," he replied. "But we're both standing in his trap now. Best we start thinking how to spring it." Evelyn stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. There was no argument left in her, only exhaustion and a flicker of trust she hadn't meant to give. She turned toward the window. Snow still drifted down, soft and harmless, hiding the world's cruelty beneath a white blanket. "Then what do we do?" she asked. Tahoma stepped closer to the door, checking his rifle. "We wait," he said. "And when Mills comes, we show him this cabin's got new owners." Outside, the wind shifted direction, carrying with it the faint echo of a distant horse's whinny. Neither of them spoke, but both knew trouble was already climbing the mountain. The storm broke at dawn. Thoma woke to a sound that didn't belong to the mountain, the low crunch of hooves in snow. He rose instantly, instinct sharper than the wind that knifed through the cracks in the cabin wall. Outside, the world lay silver and silent, except for three dark shapes moving slowly across the ridge. Riders. He stepped to the window, hand on his rifle. The breath left his chest in a single word. Mills. Behind him, Evelyn froze. She had been pouring coffee, her hand steady until that name cut through the air. The tin cup fell, spilling dark liquid across the table. "He found us," she whispered. "Looks that way," Tahoma said. His tone was calm, but his jaw tightened. Three men on horseback, each bundled in thick coats, made their way through the trees, slow, deliberate, certain of their target. One of them, tall and broad with a fur collar and a cruel grin, rode at the center. Jacob Mills. Evelyn's breath came quick and shallow. "He won't stop, Tahoma. He wants that gold. He killed for it once, and he'll do it again." Tahoma turned, eyes narrowing. "Then we don't give him the chance." He moved around the cabin with practiced precision, checking the rifle chamber, counting bullets, tightening the window shutters. Evelyn followed him, her fear giving way to a cold determination. "I can shoot," she said, voice low. He paused. "You sure about that?" "I've had practice," she answered, picking up her revolver. "Thanks to him." Tahoma gave a brief nod. No time for doubt. No room for mercy. Outside, Mills and his men dismounted about 50 yards away. Their boots crunched over the snow as they advanced. One man held a torch, its flame spitting in the cold air. Tahoma pushed open the window shutter just enough to aim. The wind bit at his bare skin, but he didn't feel it. His heart had gone still, every beat sinking with the land around him. He called out first, "You're trespassing." The voice that came back was smooth and venomous. "Don't be foolish, half-breed. I've come for what's mine." Evelyn flinched at the sound of Mill's voice. Tahoma felt her stiffen behind him. "This land's mine," Tahoma said evenly. "Got the papers. Paid your price." Mills laughed, a deep, mocking sound. "Then I reckon you paid for your own grave." The torch arced through the air, landing near the porch. Fire hissed to life against the snow. "Get down," Tahoma growled. The next second, the crack of gunfire shattered the morning calm. Bullets tore through the window frame, splintering wood and glass. Evelyn ducked behind the table, returning fire with shaking hands. Her first shot went wide, but her second found flesh. One of Mills's men fell with a scream. Tahoma took his aim slow, steady, and precise. The second man fell back into the snow, blood blooming like a red flower on white ground. Mills retreated behind a tree, shouting orders. The echo of his voice bounced off the cliffs. "You can't hide forever, Hart." He bellowed. "You think that savage can save you? He'll die same as your husband did. Evelyn's grip tightened on the revolver until her knuckles whitened. "He burned my life once," she hissed. "He's not taking what's left." The shootout stretched for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. The cabin's air filled with smoke and the acrid scent of gunpowder. Every blast of the rifle made the walls tremble, then silence. Only the wind, the hiss of dying fire, and the groan of a wounded man outside. Tahoma lowered his weapon, eyes scanning the ridge. 2 bodies lay still. The 3rd horse was gone. Mills had fled. Evelyn slumped against the wall, chest heaving. "He'll come back," she said, voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Tahoma replied, reloading his rifle. "But next time he won't bring torches." He stepped to the window again. Snow began falling once more, erasing the blood, the tracks, the violence. It looked almost peaceful, a cruel disguise for what lay beneath. Evelyn came to stand beside him. The firelight softened her face, but her eyes burned with something fierce. "He won't stop until he gets what's buried here," she said. Thoma turned his gaze toward the wooden floorboards, his expression darkening. "Then maybe it's time we see what he's chasing." For the first time that morning, Evelyn met his eyes and didn't look away. The fear that had ruled her life was turning into something harder. Sharper. Outside, the mountain was still. But both of them knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. The storm rolled down from the mountains like a living beast, swallowing the world in white. The cabin was a ghost in the blizzard, smoke twisting from its roof like a prayer to a sky that refused to listen. Inside, Tahoma stood bare-chested before the fire, his skin streaked with soot and blood, his long black hair damp with melted snow. Every muscle in his back tensed as he listened for the echo of hooves through the wind. Evelyn sat near the hearth, trembling, wrapping an old blanket tighter around her shoulders. The air smelled of gunpowder and pine sap, and somewhere outside, a wounded horse cried out, a long, haunting sound that made her eyes well up. "You think they'll come back?" she whispered. Tom, I didn't turn. His voice was low, like thunder buried in the distance. "Men like them don't give up when they lose once. They come back meaner." She swallowed hard. "Then we should leave. Before they find us." He finally looked at her, those deep brown eyes softening for the first time since she met him. "This land, this cabin, I bought it. I ain't running from thieves." Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. There was something in his tone, a quiet pride, something sacred. She saw beyond the warrior now, saw the man who had fought for a place in a world that kept trying to push him out. He moved closer to the window, the floorboards creaking under his bare feet. The glass was fogged with frost, but through it, faint shadows moved beyond the tree line. He loaded his rifle again, fingers quick and steady. "They're waiting for the storm to hide them," he murmured. "But snow doesn't hide scent or fear." Evelyn rose, her breath trembling. "Tahoma, you can't fight them alone. There's too many." He gave a faint smile, almost a smirk. "You think I never fought when I was outnumbered?" For a moment, silence fell between them, heavy and strange, like the stillness before lightning. The fire crackled, throwing his shadow large against the log wall. He looked like something out of another time, ancient, strong, unbroken. Then a knock thundered on the door. Both froze. The sound came again, slow, deliberate. Evelyn's eyes widened in terror. Tahoma motioned for her to stay back, then lifted his rifle and approached the door. Snow blew in through the cracks around the frame. "Who's there?" he called out. A voice answered, rough and broken by the wind. "It's me, Jeb Carver. My boy's hurt. Please help us." Evelyn shook her head wildly. "Tahoma, don't he's one of them." But Tahoma's jaw tightened. "And if he's telling the truth?" Before she could stop him, he opened the door just a crack. A blast of cold and snow rushed in. and through it he saw a man on his knees, face pale and bleeding, clutching something wrapped in a coat. A trap. The moment Tahoma's guard dropped, a bullet whizzed past his head and buried itself in the log wall. He slammed the door shut and rolled aside, returning fire through the window. The report echoed like thunder across the mountain. Evelyn screamed as glass shattered and the storm poured inside. "Stay down." He shouted that. She fell to the floor as another shot ripped through the wall. The fire flickered, throwing wild shadows across the room. Tahoma fired again once, twice, 3 times until the only sound was the wind and the pounding of his heart. Silence returned, broken only by Evelyn's quiet sobs. Smoke from the gun drifted through the air, mixing with the smell of burning wood. Taoma lowered his rifle, breathing hard. He walked to the door again, opened it slowly. Outside, the snow was stained with blood. The figure of Jeb Carver lay motionless, half-buried. Evelyn's voice was small behind him. "They'll keep coming, won't they?" He didn't answer at first. He just looked out into the storm, his land, his fight, his fate. Then he spoke softly. "Let them come. This mountain's got a way of deciding who belongs." And as the wind screamed through the valley, Tahoma stepped outside, bare-chested in the snow, rifle in hand. His long black hair whipping in the storm, an Apache warrior guarding what was his, no matter the cost. The snow had stopped by morning, leaving the world drowned in silence. White stretched as far as Evelyn could see, untouched, cold, and heavy as a coffin lid. Smoke rose weakly from the cabin's chimney, curling through the pale light. Inside, the smell of burned wood and gunpowder lingered like ghosts. Tahoma sat by the fire, shirtless still, his bronze skin streaked with soot and faint cuts from flying glass. His long black hair fell loose over his shoulders, damp with melted snow. Across the room, Evelyn knelt beside the window, her hands trembling as she patched the broken frame with an old blanket. Her eyes kept drifting to the red stains outside. Neither had spoken much since the night before. The echo of gunfire still haunted the walls. Finally, she broke the quiet. "You killed them." Tahoma didn't look up from the rifle he was cleaning. "They came here to take what's not theirs." Her voice trembled. "You could have died." He gave a low, humorless chuckle. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried to make it happen. He looked at her then, his gaze sharp but not unkind. "You think I'm heartless, Evelyn?" She hesitated. "No, just different. Like you've already made peace with dying." His hand stilled on the rifle. "In my tribe, we're taught not to fear death, only dishonor. But this?" He nodded toward the door. "This is about living. About keeping something alive that they keep trying to take from us." Evelyn turned to the window again, her eyes glistening. "I had a child once," she whispered. "A boy. He was 3 when Jacob Mills took everything. He burned our house. I thought I could start over here, that I could build something again. But maybe," her voice broke, "maybe this land just eats the people who try." Tahoma's jaw tightened. For the first time, she saw a flicker of pain in his expression. "The land doesn't take, Evelyn. Men do. Greedy men who think they own what was never theirs." Her lip trembled. "You mean like me living in your cabin?" He looked up sharply, then softened. "No, you came here with nothing. You fought to survive. That makes you more a part of this place than any of them." The fire popped between them, filling the silence. Outside, the wind howled faintly, as if the mountain itself was breathing. Suddenly, Tahoma rose. "We can't stay here long," he said. "Mills will send more men." Evelyn's heart lurched. "Where would we go?" "There's nowhere." He looked toward the ridgeline through the window. "There's a cave beyond the frozen creek, hidden by the rocks. I used it once years ago." She shook her head. "I can't." I can't keep running. He walked to her, crouched beside her so their eyes met. His voice was soft but strong. Then fight. But if you stay here, you won't last another night when they come back. You have a choice, Evelyn. You can let this world break you, or you can make it remember your name. Her throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that, as if she was worth remembering. Before she could answer, the faint sound of hooves echoed through the valley. Tahoma froze. The look on his face changed, not fear, but readiness. He rose slowly, grabbed his rifle, and nodded toward her. Pack what you can. We're leaving. Evelyn ran to gather her few belongings, a shawl, a loaf of bread, a faded photograph tucked in a tin box. Her hands shook, but not from the cold. From the feeling that something was ending, and something else, far bigger, was beginning. Tahoma opened the cabin door, the wind biting his bare skin. He looked once more at the place he had fought for, smoke curling from the chimney, blood melting into the snow. The mountain will remember, he muttered. Evelyn joined him, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. So will I. As they stepped into the wilderness together, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days. It painted the snow in gold, lighting the path ahead, a trail that led into the unknown. But away from fear, behind them, the cabin stood silent, a scar in the white world. Proof that two lost souls had refused to surrender, and though the wind carried the scent of smoke and ash, it also carried something else, a whisper of hope. The wind was quieter in the high pass, but the mountain never forgot to whisper. It sighed through the pines and moaned across the frozen rocks as if speaking the names of those who had walked there before. Evelyn followed close behind Tahoma, her boots crunching softly in the snow. The cold bit through her shawl, but she didn't complain. Every step away from the cabin felt like leaving a piece of herself behind. Fear, grief, the ghost of the woman she used to be. Tahoma walked ahead, steady and sure, bare-chested even in the chill. His long black hair rippled with each gust, beads of turquoise glinting in the light. The rifle slung across his back caught the sun, and his breath came out in calm, steady clouds. After hours of climbing, he finally stopped at the mouth of a cave hidden behind a curtain of ivy and stone. "We'll rest here," he said quietly. His deep voice echoed off the cliffs. Evelyn stepped inside, the air warmer and still. The cave opened into a natural chamber lined with flickering light from cracks above. There were marks on the stone-old drawings of horses, suns, and handprints. She brushed one with her fingers. "These were made by your people?" He nodded, setting down his rifle. "Long before I was born. My grandfather said this cave belonged to the spirits who guide those who survive what should have killed them." Evelyn sat on a rock, pulling her shawl tighter. "Then maybe we belong here too." Tahoma smiled faintly, his dark eyes softening. "Maybe." For a while they just listened to the drip of melting snow, to the faraway cry of a hawk. The mountain, cruel as it had been, felt different up here. Not cruel, watchful. Then Tahoma spoke again, his tone thoughtful. "You asked me once why I bought that cabin." Evelyn looked up, curious. He crouched near the fire he was building, feeding it small twigs. "Because I wanted to prove something. That a man like me could own land without stealing it, could build something without taking it from someone else. But the truth is, I didn't buy it for me." Her brow furrowed. "Then for who?" He looked at her, firelight flickering in his eyes. "For what comes after. So maybe one day a child could walk through those woods and not be told he doesn't belong." Her heart tightened. "That's a beautiful dream, Tahoma." He stared into the fire. "Dreams are what keep a man alive when the world tries to bury him." The cave filled with silence again. Evelyn leaned back against the rock, exhaustion finally weighing her down. "When I first saw you," she murmured, her eyes half closed, "I thought you were going to kill me." He smiled slightly. You thought right? For a moment, I wanted to. She laughed softly despite herself. I believe you. He looked at her then, not as a stranger, not even as a woman he saved, but as someone who had fought her own battles. But then you looked at me like I was a man, not a monster. No one's done that in a long time. Her eyes glistened. You're not a monster, Tahoma. You're the only person left who still knows what it means to fight for something pure. Outside, the wind began to rise again, sweeping through the canyon with a deep hum. It sounded almost like drums, old, ancient drums. Tahoma stood and walked to the cave's mouth, watching the horizon. In the far distance, a line of riders appeared on the snow. Jacob Mills's men, searching, relentless. He didn't flinch. They're coming. Evelyn stood, fear flashing in her eyes. We can't. He turned, calm and certain. They'll follow our tracks until the storm covers them. Then they'll lose the trail. The mountain will take care of the rest. He stepped closer, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. You're safe now, Evelyn. Whatever happens to me, promise me you'll keep moving. You'll live. Her lips trembled. I can't leave you. He smiled, a quiet warmth in his gaze. You already saved me once. That's enough. The wind howled, filling the cave with sound. Evelyn watched him, the firelight painting gold over his skin, over the beads around his neck, over the scars that told stories of survival. When dawn came, the world below them glowed silver and new. The riders never reached the cave. The storm erased the trail, as if the mountain itself had swallowed it whole, and when Evelyn finally stepped out into the light, she turned back one last time. Tahoma stood in the cave's entrance bare-chested, hair whipping in the wind, the firelight behind him. He raised his hand once in farewell. Then the snow took him from sight. Years later, settlers would find that cabin still standing, smoke rising from the chimney some nights when no one lived there. They said the mountain kept a guardian and Apache spirit who watched over those who had lost everything, and gave them back the will to live. And some nights, when the wind blew just right, you could still hear his voice in it, the mountain remembers.